Hi, I'm Michael Clark and welcome to the road trip. Today in the Blue Ocean studio is one of my absolute favorite Porsches. And I think I need to explain exactly why it's one of my favorites. Certainly if we had dry pavement outside and if we were near a track, we'd show you a lot more that this car can do. But what I absolutely love about Porsche Caymans, as well as the sibling, the Boxster, is they make excellent winter cars. And you're probably saying, maybe it's time for us to call emergency personnel and see exactly what's scrambled up inside of Michael Clark's mind. Well, the good news is that I'm not crazy, because Porsche will tell you that they want you to take these cars and drive them 365. They do not want them to be stored. They were never meant to be stored. They were meant to be driven. And we're going to get into why that is and why you need to know about things like the Porsche stability controls that do such an excellent job of handling even the worst type of winter conditions. Now, this is the third generation of the Cayman. And as we know, it's very, very closely related to the Boxster. But what is also important is the awards that the car has already been receiving. This is actually the World Performance Car, which was announced in 2013. Now, there's a lot about the Cayman that is familiar, but to the untrained eye, there's a lot of things here that people might think are just simply evolutionary carryovers. That's not the way Porsche works. There is a much larger car here than what existed with the second generation, and it's even lighter. Plus, there's a lot more performance with the flat sixes, and we're going to explain what we like about this particular Cayman S, which has an MSRP of $72,900 at the starting point. But what you need to remember about Porsche is that then you get into making it even more bespoke. And this particular one that we've got sitting here in the Blue Ocean studio, it settles in at about $95,000 and change. And yes, you can drive it in the winter, and we're going to tell you all about how much fun we've been having with that here in and around Winnipeg. Now, if you've got thoughts, feelings, or questions about the Porsche Cayman, anything Porsche for that matter, send an email to steelbeltedmind@gmail.com. Buckle up, it's time for the road trip. Well, I really want to show you the engine on a Porsche Cayman, much like I'd like to show you the engine on a Porsche Boxster, but well, the only way that we would be able to do that is if we actually had a hoist here at Blue Ocean, and we'll put it in the suggestion box for next year. But what is under this rather large hump here, because we are dealing with a mid-engine array, is a 3.4 liter flat six. 325 horsepower, 272 pound-feet of torque. You've got a 4 camshaft setup, 4 valves per cylinder, direct injection now on this particular flat six, and surprisingly good fuel economy, 6.6 liters per 100 kilometers according to the EnerGuide statements. And I have to tell you, when you put it together with the 7-speed PDK, and don't even try to get me to pronounce that in German, that sort of automatic transmission, because realistically we're talking a dual clutch job, it does some incredible things when it comes to economy. And if you drive something like this Cayman S with something resembling a little bit of restraint, you'll be surprised at how well you do. Now, there really isn't a lot that you or any other weekend warrior could do in respect to checking out things underneath, but you can check a couple of fluid levels. You actually do have the abilities to top up the oil as well as the coolant if required, if that is given to you on the driver information screens. Now, I do like the way that they did set this up. I'm not a big fan about bringing in permanent staining types of fluids into areas with carpet. You should see my house. Let's put those back into place before any stains occur. And I should also point out while we're back here that the Cayman has definitely lost a lot of weight. And one of the places that is a weight saver is the hatch lid here. This is an aluminum hatch lid, and it's certainly contributing to the overall weight loss that the Cayman has experienced. Now, it is riding on a longer wheelbase than the previous generation car, and the one thing that you'll notice if you take a look here at the rear bumper as well as the front is that the overhangs are actually very short. It has done its best to push the wheels out to the corners as much as possible, so that is definitely going to contribute to very good handling. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out is that even though it's a very slippery design, it's very important, especially with a car that's going to have a top speed somewhere around 175 miles an hour, that you have proper downforce. Now, when it comes to the Cayman, you do have the speed-sensitive rear lip here, which will raise up to assist that, but there's also been adjustments to the front lip spoiler to help with the downforce that you need. Believe me, if you've ever driven a vehicle at that type of speed, even in a track environment, and when you start to feel that lift, it is definitely a scary feeling. So make sure that you research that, especially if you're going to be taking a car like this out for a lot of heavy-duty track time. Now, what I like about the Cayman S is it comes with the bi-xenon headlamps as standard equipment, and I've got to tell you, if you're looking at anything Porsche, in fact, even if you're looking at a used Cayman, make sure it's got the bi-xenons, and I'll tell you why. I had an experience with a 2007 Cayman. Let's just say I just about met a deer, and not in the right way, with the standard headlamps. I found them to be positively dim. Now, what I do think is a bright idea is the new daytime running lamps below at the intake level. This is exclusive to the Cayman, so it definitely gives it a signature look as it's going down the road. Now, speaking of going down the road, the one thing I really like about the new styling for the third generation is a much more chiseled belt line. If you actually take a look at the side profile of the car, you can actually see where somebody did a little bit of bending. It actually is a lot more aggressive looking, and therefore, in my mind's eye, a lot more 911 looking. Now, I'd already mentioned how they've improved the daylight opening, but the other thing I wanted to point out is how they've changed the rear array for the lighting setup. In fact, if you have to look very close at the rear hatch area here, because the LED stop lamp, the high mount stop lamp, is actually integrated into the glass, and quite honestly, you'll miss it if you don't look close enough. Now, because the Porsche Cayman has actually had some adjustments in respect to size, that means that you're going to have a little bit more when it comes to actual cargo carrying room. I will say that, well, I don't know if you could fit a well-fed auto journalist in there, and, well, oh, what the heck. Let's give it a try and see exactly how well. Well, it's certainly comfortable. I mean, it's maybe the spot you could have at the local pickup joint if you're into that sort of thing. Hi, how you doing? Nice to see you. And actually, if you were to do something strange and creepy like that, there's actually quite a bit of padding down low in the carpet, so you could probably do this for at least a half hour. Okay, enough of the weird and strange. Let's get down to business. And when it comes to the front compartment here, there's a few things that you need to know about when it comes to taking care of your Porsche Cayman. Now, on the passenger side, you've got this little biscuit here. And what this is your wonderful tire inflation goo, which we sure hope we never have to completely rely on. But as expected with a vehicle of this configuration, there's no place to put a spare tire that's not going to completely rob you of anything that you need to have for cargo area room. So it plugs into the side like so. Oh, Porsche actually does think that somebody could fit in there, because that's why there has to be the federally mandated glow-in-the-dark handle to release the hood. Let that be a lesson to anyone who's planning on putting an X in there. Over on the driver's side, we also have the necessary tools and, of course, the tow hook. Heaven forbid you'd ever have to pop that out and plop that in, but that's exactly what that is there for. Now, there is actually a good light in the inside here on the front compartment. Now, this particular panel here, this is going to reveal a lot of the other bits. And before we get to that, just wanted to point out that your washer fluid reservoir, I did check with the folks at Porsche Canada, holds 6 liters. So that's definitely a good size. Let's pop out the panel here. Now, once we've got the panel out of the way, you'll notice a few things that you need to be aware of when it comes to taking care of your Cayman. And that's the tire inflation kit here. Just simply pop that cover up, and that's how you access that. Snaps back into place. Your HVAC system has, as most vehicles do today, a form of filtration system. This is all accessed in this portion here. Battery, easy to remove, simply for the fact that it has the handles. That certainly helps. The master cylinder, easily accessed for top-ups when required. And the other thing you'll probably notice here as you take a look at the strut towers is you've got these wires coming out of them. The Porsche Active Suspension Management is what that means on this particular Cayman S. So that's going to give you the ability to adjust the damping as you're driving and get the ride comfort or the very sporty feel that you want, especially if you're on the track. Now, this particular Cayman S does have the 19-inch wheels on it and the brakes, oh, those beautiful Porsche brakes. And we're talking about 4-piston monoblocks here, and that's front and rear. The discs are both ventilated for the front and rear as expected. And, well, just to give you an idea of exactly how big they are here, 13-inch rotors up front. Isn't that the size of wheels on some cars that we used to own? So they do an excellent job for hauling this Porsche down in a hurry. But what also does a very good job is the Continental Conti Winter contacts that this particular Porsche Cayman S is wearing. I have to admit, I wasn't expecting it to be terribly aggressive, because normally when you see shoulder blocks of this width, you're not expecting there to be a lot of ability to cut as you're turning into snowy streets. Well, I have to tell you, I was really impressed. Take a look at the separation between the blocks here. You've got excellent capabilities here to evacuate water. Plus, in the inner portion of the tread, there's actually almost like a bit of a crosshatch type of system. So even though we're dealing with a tire size where we wouldn't expect to see something terribly aggressive, these are excellent and actually have performed quite well in the Manitoba winter. Now, you may not be expecting there to be much to talk about for the total overall cargo configurations inside the Cayman S, but you'd be mistaken, because there's actually quite a bit of interesting stowage areas within. Now, in the rear, we do have the well, if you can call it that, but it also does have a mesh that allows you to contain things, keep them from rolling around, especially important if you're on the track and also had to go to Costco at the same time. The keeping away from pry bar eyes shield up here can be removed. It's simply just a twist and pop off, and do that on both sides. Take that out if you don't require it. There's also additional tie down points atop where the engine lives, so if you need to tie down garment bags, anything like that. The other thing is that when it comes to cargo, there's actually some rub strips here. So I'm a little tempted to see if I could put a little bit of lumber in it, but I don't think Porsche would like that very much. Now, if you actually take a look along the sides here, you'd be surprised at how much additional lighting is here. You actually do have a light for the hatch up top, as well as a pull down. So that's important. You definitely want to be using that and not soiling yourself come winter time. But what I wanted to point out on the sides is that you actually have 2 additional I guess you'd call them cubbies. And what I like about the way that they're set up is that they have these roll top style of doors. So what I'll do is I'll open one up here just to show you how you access it. And you can do it from both inside the vehicle as well as from here. And you could keep items in there such as your Mobile One, which I'm sure would be the elixir of choice for this particular flat six. The rest of the hatch, it's exceptionally well trimmed. To even have to talk about the seam sealer or anything like that, no, actually I do. No, you need to see this. This is how you finish a trunk lid, because not only has it been exceptionally well done in the seam sealer, but there's also an incredible amount of paint covering it. This is absolute beauty. This is very well put together, as expected with anything from the Porsche Cayman. Now, when it comes to safety, there's actually some news that you need to know about when it comes to the Cayman. You've actually got 8 airbags, the usual 6 in respect to dual frontal, dual side as well as curtain, but you've also got knee airbags for the driver as well as the front passenger. Now, the other thing that you need to know about safety is the use of quite a bit of high-strength steel in the key areas, in the cell protecting the passengers. That includes, of course, a boron steel. There's a considerable amount of aluminum in the construction of the vehicle. But the one thing that I noticed, and this is definitely a plus when it comes to side impact, is the fact that there's actually an element that's been put into place to make sure that the door stays as much a part of this part as opposed to coming into you. And if you take a look at the bottom of the rocker panel here, you're going to notice a little inlet just to the south of the S, of the Cayman S on the rocker. And if you take a look on the bottom of the door, you're going to notice that there is an alignment style of pin. So when the door is closed, that locks into place, and in the event of a side impact, that's going to keep the door from pushing its way into the driver or the passenger. Now, inside the 2014 Cayman S, there's definitely been a lot of thought that has been put into reshaping the interior of this particular Porsche. Now, some may remember it was a bit of a, how do I put this? The gazebo, if you will, that used to cover the gauge pod. Well, that's gone, and thankfully so. But everything is exactly the way that you expect it to be for a Porsche gauge cluster. And that means that the tachometer is still front and center with the digital display for speed. But you're more concerned about where you're revving, of course. Now, the other thing they may be concerned about on the track is how many G's you're pulling. There's actually a G meter with this particular Cayman S. Now, this being the Sport Chrono package, this particular vehicle actually has the ability to do 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds. Now, it does that with the PDK, the 7-speed PDK, and it's important to note that it's smarter than you. It can actually shift faster than the best of the best when it comes to the 6-speed manual, which would be the standard transmission. Now, the one thing I like about this particular setup is it certainly evokes a lot of images of other Porsches that we've enjoyed, such as the Panamera and the 911. The way that the switch banks have been put together here, you've got easy access to your Sport Plus, as well as your Porsche active suspension management. Now, you've got your traction control here, but you also have something very interesting when it comes to economy. This particular Porsche has the auto start-stop system. So when it is engaged and you pull up to an intersection and have your foot on the brake, it will actually turn the engine off. Now, that is definitely going to contribute to economy, and it will still keep all of the systems working within, such as your HVAC. Now, it's important to note, much like other auto start-stop systems, you're going to feel that rumble underneath when it finally does re-engage, when you release the brake and head out on your way. My preference is to keep it off, but especially for city driving, it definitely is going to make a difference when it comes to your economy. Now, the touch screen is actually very easily accessed, and the one thing that I do like, for those of us who still soldier on with BlackBerry, is that it actually will give full detail screen view of the emails when they come in. You're also able to easily pair your phone, which is something we've had trouble with in the past with Porsche systems of this nature, but there's also easy access to the HVAC controls, and it's a dual climate control system here, so you're able to get the temperature exactly the way you want it for the driver as well as the front passenger. Heated seats, 3-step heated seats, and very toasty for Canadian winters. What I do like about the HVAC system is it does an exceptional job of keeping the side windows clear, and you can notice that when you take a look at the dashboard. Now, as expected, Porsche realizes that certain people out there want cup holders, and well, you still have them behind the bright surround above the glove box door, and they're still, well, not that great. In fact, can you imagine what would happen if a double-double decided to tip its way over into the HVAC controls? I think that's Porsche's way of saying, you really shouldn't be putting cups in here, but they are here in case you do need them. Now, the glove box is flock lined, very nicely put together, good size, even with the War and Peace style of owner's manuals that we've now come to know and expect. And there is a 12-volt power outlet inside the glove box, so that's going to make it easy for charging your phone or keeping your media player juiced up. Now, the center console lid, well, there's not particularly much here, but there is a 12-volt DC inside, so you're able to plug in anything like your cell phones and such. And as for the rest of the interior, the one thing I did want to point out is that the door pockets actually are quite ample considering the size of the car, and you also have the ability to tip out the side portions to put additional things inside. There's a couple of things that I thought for $95,000 we should have had here, such as a backup camera, and backlit vanities would have been nice. But the other thing that is included on this particular Cayman S is the home link system. So if you're able to figure out how that works with your home lighting system, you're able to have the ability to light up the house lights, open up the garage door, all have it integrated into the vehicle. I decided to check with the Porsche Center Winnipeg on any special things that one needs to do to drive their Porsche in the winter. And as expected, they do recommend a proper set of winter tires. In the parts department, I found a few sets of recently retired Nokian Hakkapeliitas, and yes, with the metal studs to get through the ice. I talked to Jason Neustetter. He's a Porsche technician, and as he tells us, the Porsches are actually quite resilient when it comes to dealing with Manitoba salt and grit.
People have come to me with concerns about driving their vehicle in the winter as far as corrosion and whatnot, but the car comes with a 12-year corrosion guarantee, and basically it goes through a rigorous paint assembly plant from factory. The car gets dipped, and then it comes up, and then it gets baked, and then the car gets painted, and then everything has a coat of sealant and wax on it from underneath. Also, the other thing too is, now with all the newer sports cars, the paneling is from right to the front bumper all the way to the back, so everything is enclosed. The only thing that's exposed would be the rear of the engine. So you're not going to get a lot of road grime and debris on stuff in areas like that. All the side skirts they're using now are fiberglass plastic. You know, I don't know any other manufacturer that offers a 12-year guarantee on corrosion.
Let me just state by saying that there are many more Porsche owners who are driving their cars in the winter. Even cars like the Boxster, the Cayman S, 911 rear-wheel drive, as well as all-wheel drive are becoming more and more prevalent here in our Winnipeg streets. I think it's partially due to the fact that there's a little bit more awareness of what winter tires can do for performance, as well as a knowledge about how the cars can handle in the wintertime. There's a winter driving academy called Camp 4 that Porsche Canada includes every year for voluntary drivers to be able to experience some of the sports cars and what they can do in the winter. Talking about it with customers as well as doing day-to-day test drives with something like the Cayman S in the wintertime is ideal because it really gives you a sense of safety and the capabilities of the car, not just on the track, but also in everyday streets like Winnipeg, especially in the winter.
Now, what I like about this particular Cayman S is it has been optioned out in the best performance sense. And as we've mentioned, things like the Porsche Active Suspension Management System, also torque vectoring control, which can actually apply dollops of braking on the inside wheel to also get the torque over to the other wheel to help keep you in line. Not to mention the fact that we've got pretty serious brakes on it. But the other thing that needs to be remembered is that at $72,900, this is an extreme value when you take a look at exactly how well it can do in the performance numbers. It's important to note that if you actually go with the Sport Chrono package with this particular Cayman S, you're actually going to be able to outrun naturally aspirated 911s. So it's definitely a performance value. But what also is a really good value is the standard Cayman for just under $60,000 in Canada. Now, you're dealing with the smaller Boxer and you're still going to be getting 0 to 60 times in the mid 5-second range. But at the same time, you're benefiting from all of the improvements that are now on both of the Cayman models. And that also translates over to the Boxster side if you like top-down motoring. Now, if you've got thoughts, feelings, or questions about anything automotive, the Road Trip is here to help. Send an email to steelbeltedmind@gmail.com. For the Road Trip, I'm Michael Clark. Keep the shiny side up and the rubber side down.